In February 2020, 2 weeks after
Run out by Kobe Bryant.
Five-time NBA champion Kobe Bryant died earlier this afternoon.
and 3 weeks before,
At least 59 people are believed to have been sickened by the new virus.
I traveled to Cuba. Something brought me there. You see, I love traveling, but I haven't traveled that much outside of the United States, and I didn't want to go to the usual suspects. I wanted to go somewhere that most people don't think to go, and that is Cuba. And on my first night, walking right here, there, just above and to the left of this dinner menu, is sitting a hitman in hiding. Cuba is a fascinating country, trapped in a time capsule, literally, which makes it the perfect place to lie low. When the rest of the world is moving, Cuba is still. The paint on the walls, the roads, the roofs haven't been upgraded or touched in 70 years. And all of that stuff that doesn't change, that Cuba's known for, makes the pristine nature of the cars that much more notable. Unlike America, there's no car culture or car pride like we have here. These have been passed down and maintained for generations for one reason. Cars in Cuba are how the elite make their money. Now, if you're a doctor in Cuba, you're making a salary of about $30 per month. If you own a car and you're a cab driver to tourists like me, you're making $30 a day. Cuba's biggest problem is the lack of opportunity for their educated people, and those educated people get out as soon as they can and go to the other countries. So that creates an environment where hotels and cab drivers are on top of the food chain. And I tell you this because I learned it from the hitman in the cafe. It was the first night in Havana. My travel partner and I are walking along the main street looking at all the menus in the windows, and we stop at this one place just like we did 3 or 4 others prior. We hear a very bold and strong Irish accent. "The food is great here," he says. And we look up, and there is, we'll call him Jack. Jack is in his early 70s. He's got a beard, he's got a tattoo of Ireland on his calf. He's sitting across from a young Cuban girl with dark skin and a tube top. And we're like, okay, this is a very interesting dynamic. We engage in small talk with Jack, and he tells us how he eats 3 meals a day there, that he lives in a hotel right across the street, and he's been living there for 9 years. And we ask him pretty much every question, like, what is daily life here like for him? How did he decide on Cuba? How does he make money? Things like that. And he went on telling us how he'd been visiting Cuba for 40 years before he even moved here. And about 10 years ago, he figured that he would just move to Cuba because Cuba is probably a good place for him to settle, because the people that don't really like him are less likely to go after him and bother him here. We spent an hour talking to him. That's where he told us about the culture of Cuba, the hierarchy of who makes money and what happens here. He was explaining to us that he helps the hotel that he stays at facilitate guest requests for the underground tourist scene of Cuba. And he started dropping subtle hints about his backstory, and that's when we started digging into it. He told us that he spent 10 years in prison during the 90s. He was held as a prisoner in Great Britain, and that he was released in 1999 under something called the Good Friday Agreement between Northern Ireland and Great Britain. So Jack called himself a contractor for something called the IRA. They were a militant group in Northern Ireland who had the goal of giving North Ireland its independence from Great Britain. And for the later parts of the 20th century, there was a ton of violence, assassinations, bombings, things like that with these militant groups. But essentially, Jack called himself a contractor. And what was he contracted to do? He was assigned to be in Germany with the IRA, and he was on call to kill as many British soldiers on and off duty as he can. The IRA was known to create attacks on British military personnel in Germany. There would be bombings on base and even attacking off-duty soldiers. He admitted to killing 12 people. And we asked him what he exactly got arrested for, and he didn't tell us. And I did find this one article about an investigation that opened in the early 2010s. One of these Germany-stationed IRA operatives that was responsible for a bombing of a British military base. And that kind of lines up with Jack's story of when he decided to come over to Cuba to flee the people that he didn't like. Cuba is a place frozen in time. Somewhere Jack didn't constantly need to be looking over his shoulder. A place so different from the world he knew, he could lay away sedated, unbothered. What brought me to Cuba was that same stillness, but from a different point of view. I came here in search of the unfamiliar, while Jack came here to not be found.